Oh, this should be a fun evening. This first poet, 15 years ago, when the Poets Guild, which was then called the Shoreline Poets, read in the Dudley Farm Museum up in North Guilford. And Margaret Iacobellis and I shared the evening reading poetry. I think we had about 8 or 9 people there. So everything starts small and hopefully catches on. I didn't realize I was reading with a rising star at the time. Margaret has won several Poetry Society awards, Connecticut Poetry Society awards. Her poetry has been published in Tidelines of South Florida, in Octagon, an anthology of Guilford poets, Connecticut River Review, and issues of Caduceus and Long River Run. And her poetry was performed with music and dance by the neighborhood music school. So please welcome Margaret Iacobellis.
Thank you, Gordy. We do go back, way, way, way back. And many of us in this group go way, way, way back to Katrina Van Tasselworth, who started us all and taught us how to be poets. She said, stand up, shoulders back, you own your poem. It is you. Defend it, present it. So I looked around and found a poem that she wrote many, many years ago, and it's fitting because it's called November. Naked, November sits alone on a bare branch, searching through leafless trees for the coming of December. No privacy for her now, with leaf shield blown away, squirrels' matted nest exposed, a few cones, dried apples, a red kite trapped in branches, a feather lifting, settling. November, December. Their paths will never intersect. One walks to sleep for a year, her job done. The other must keep wide-eyed for 31 days. 31 days, long nights. Snow is forecast for tomorrow. So as I was searching for some of these old, old poems that we had written, talked about, and done, I picked just a few to share with you. This is about my mother and her cousin, who was my Aunt Margaret. 'Tis tea time, 1944. Their breakfast was always a rushed affair. Toast, oatmeal, Irish breakfast tea. In the morning, these ladies had little time to tarry. Mary, though married, was a school teacher, rare in that time. Margaret was the only woman among 7 in the local furniture manufacturing office. Both were ahead of their times. Mary and Margaret would meet every afternoon at 4, savoring dainty sips of their orange pekoe tea, squeezing thin lemon slices, caressing sturdy cups, recounting the day's successes, defeats. Elizabeth Cady Stanton once mused, at the Boston Tea Party, the delicacy the men threw overboard was tea, woman's favorite drink. Tobacco and whiskey, though more heavily taxed, men clung to with the tenacity of the devilfish. These tiny sisters, busy winning their own small battles, never read Elizabeth Cady Stanton. A pity. Some of these poems that we decided we were going to read deal with families and relationships. St. Monica dreams of her son, Augustine. Angry, he sometimes shouts at me. Still, I know what is best for him. At the old well, country women stand apart from me, whispering behind their hands, not understanding holy words and ways. My son leads a life given over to wine and pleasuring women. Worries pursue me as I follow him from town to town, lecturing, praying aloud. Small wisdoms and ancient rules I scribe upon papyrus scrolls, placing them twice a day on his door, his bedplace, the seat of his chair. Gathering leeks and lentils, melons and mint, I slice my prayers into his almond pie, dice my warnings among plump figs, dark walnuts. I vow to give him no peace until he repents, relives his life. He may never thank me. A good mother needs no thanks. Then, because it is November, it brings me back to Veterans Day, and this is a poem I wrote probably 10 years ago. It's called Korean Veterans Day. All old soldiers have their stories to tell. Henry Johns was sent to St. Louis to make eyeglasses, and Jimmy Balday was sent to Pork Chop Hill. In St. Louis, Henry was treated well, crafting thousands of Army field glasses. All old soldiers have their stories to tell. I hear Jimmy's mother weeping still, her heart shriveled into cold ashes, hearing Jimmy Balday was shot at Pork Chop Hill. Can a wartime mother accept God's will? Did Henry Johns ever have second guesses? All old soldiers have their story to tell. The price of a war, unspeakable bills. In the POW camps, young boys starved in masses, while Jimmy Balday bled out on Pork Chop Hill. Henry Johns, at 81, makes eyeglasses still and gives pep talks to high school classes. All old soldiers have their stories to tell. But Jimmy Balday's story ended on Pork Chop Hill. And in that same happy vein, I give you one more. The winner, 2008. Your large eyes dart nervously as you stand under the bright stage lights. You are an awkward, never-noticed boy, unaccustomed to attention. Tonight, your teachers and fellow students declare you a winner, pat you on the back, shake your hand. You are the only graduate who has enlisted in the Army. 17 years and 11 months old, a baby. Your father, so proud. Your mother, grim. Remember the Perkins boy? He went to Iraq. The town named a bridge after him. I'm sorry, I haven't cheered you up at all.
Thanks, Margaret. Our next poet, Gwen Gunn, is a woman of many talents. I can remember a couple of years ago, I said, well, what's new, Gwen? And she said, I'm learning how to tap dance. Maybe she'll get up here and do a few. Gwen has had her poems published in Connecticut Poets at Work, an anthology of Guilford poets, and Connecticut River Review. She co-edited the poetry magazine Embers and worked as an editorial assistant and writer of theatrical biographies for Sachem Publishing. She is a playwright. Her plays have been produced at the Theater for the New City, West Beth Theater, and the East 4th Street Theater in New York. She has participated many years in the Guild's poetry reading series at Guilford High School. If you visit her home, you will note that she is also quite capable with the artist's paintbrush. So the many talented Gwen Gunn.
Thank you for that very flattering introduction. Very nice. Yeah, right. I'll shuffle off the buffalo. We decided to start our readings with a poem by one of our favorite authors, and mine is Emily Dickinson. This is my letter to the world that never wrote to me, the simple news that nature told with tender majesty. Her message is committed to hands I cannot see. For love of her, sweet countrymen, judge tenderly of me. And then another one by her. I was looking for something that I could start my book with, and the book's called Tastes. So I found a poem that has taste in it. 'Tis customary as we part, a trinket to confer. It helps to stimulate the faith when lovers be afar. 'Tis various as the various taste. Clematis, journeying far, presents me with a single curl of her electric hair. As Margaret noted, we decided to have a theme of relationships tonight. And one of my long-term relationships is with a painting group. For 17 years, we went to Penobscot Bay to paint. And this is a villanelle, so you will hear a lot of repetition in it. Painting in Maine. With mighty arms, we bravely raise the brush, allow color and line to strike our eyes. First fear, frustration, then at last a rush. We need quiet, don't like when others gush. Assert onto the canvas, breathe deep sighs, when with our mighty arms we raise the brush. To paint the shore, the rocks, the blazing bush. On days without a breeze, the sunlight fries, spreads fear, frustration, until there's a rush of wind and cloud. One painter craves to smush her colors in a swirl, hoped for surprise, as with her mighty arm she braves the brush. Another with dark slashes, with a crush bisects white field as he a Rothko tries, in fear, frustration, to obtain a rush. Later we spread them out, await the prize of having struggle won in others' eyes. With mighty arms we bravely raised the brush, squelched fear, frustration, gained a welcome rush. I'm going to start my relationships at a very young age. Age 3 in Hawaii. My uncle lifts me onto his shoulders, high among the frangipani, wind cool against my face, whinnies to make me giggle as we gallop around grandfather's parish yard. Dark children play in a circle, call me to join their game. My uncle kneels to let me go. 2 drop hands, grab mine, and I skip around to their song. What fun! Until grandfather comes to pull me away with a frown. Scares me too much to ask why. And then some early relationships are dark. Innocence. He grabbed me off the ground into a tight embrace, pungent with wine and sweat. slowly released me, vining down his body's rough terrain. We children thrilled when he joined in hide and seek. As I thought he might, he took my arm. "Come hide with me behind the elm." He pressed me close. The bark was sharp. I laughed when we were found at once. Hard-beating heart, I let him lead me once more. Under dark yew, he pulled me down in liquid, rhythmic urgency. "Doesn't this feel good?" he moaned. On top, too large and smelling bad. I pushed away, sat up and stared in 8-year-old disgust. He looked away. "Your uncle's dirty," I confided to my friend. "He just came from a picnic," she replied. And this took place in 5th grade. Walls. The wall is rough, old bricks perhaps, then just before the entrance, juts. We press against its surface, pushing forward, inch between its sharpness and the kid ahead, striving to gain the coveted front spot. Sometimes I squeeze into first place. Not yet feminist enough not to glory in mate's praise. She's good as a boy. Early height, plus this combative spirit, do little the next year to endear me to a boy who rides a motorcycle. When like a pest, I follow sweet Roberta along with that bad boy I find attractive, who wishes I'd go play games I could win. This took place in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan one summer. Dick Hartley kisses me when I am 12. The trees are close. The night is very dark. The tinkle-pinks chorus in the pines. Needles soften our steps, leave no mark. He holds my arm, unspoken urge to fall behind. I'm suddenly alone with a 14-year-old boy. He stops us in the path and pulls me face to face. I feel fearfulness, but also joy, as he presses his mouth to mine with silent grace. I can't remember his face, just his gentleness. Weak knees make me stumbly as we move on. We say only goodbye, no feelings confess. Next year in school, my girlfriend and I groove on the same tattooed boy. He chooses her, and I write DH everywhere. And this is just a little bit later, maybe the next summer at 13. Summer nights. Firefly-filled, gentle air, softened competition in our games of kick the can and hide and seek. Giggles hid a vague sense of longing. Between the houses, trying to be Tudor, there were close-clipped lawns and juvenile trees, a development still sprouting new construction. Brakes might squeal at crossroads blocks away, but on our boulevard a car was rarely heard. Only crickets and tree frogs joined our calls. Mock orange and lilies lent a luxury tonight. In the backyard where the street light didn't reach, my girlfriend, 1 year older, led her boyfriend. Later she regaled me with his passion. One night, his younger brother and I hid there. We didn't speak, but we kissed, green as grass. I pulled away and laughed, yet let him try again. His brasher brother and my friend were leaps ahead, she bragged in thrilling tales of ways they touched. Hide and seek continued. The tease became the point. The older flattered made me blush, unlike his quiet brother. I don't remember the sweet longing ever ending. Thank you.
Thanks, Gwen. Before I met our next poet, I read one of her poems. I didn't even know her at the time. And the poem just hit me so hard because it was about a little girl who lived across the street from a cemetery. And in the cemetery, there was a big World War I cannon, and it was aimed right at her bedroom. And so she was so fearful that when she went to bed at night that the cannon might go off. And I wanted to call her up and say, Audrey, it's okay, honey. And then I finally met her. Audrey Fitting is a hard-working member of the Guilford Poets Guild. She is a computer whiz, and she is an excellent photographer. Recently, she has taken up oils and acrylics and has had a number of exhibitions in the area. I think one of her books has your painting on the cover, doesn't it? Yes. When she isn't doing these things, you might find her on a balmy summer evening out cruising in her souped-up 1935 Ford. She's been published by Connecticut River Review, the Martha's Vineyard News, and in all 7 issues of Caduceus. Please welcome Audrey Fitting.
Hello. First I'm going to read a poem. Can everybody hear me? First I'm going to read a poem that was written by one of my favorite poets, Billy Collins. This was called No Time. In a rush this weekday morning, I tap the horn as I speed past the cemetery where my parents are buried, side by side, under a smooth slab of granite. Then, all day, I think of him rising up to give me that look of knowing disapproval, while my mother calmly tells him, lie back down. My first poems are not necessarily love poems, but they're all personal. Anyway, I'm going to read one. I was born and grew up in North Branford, and the schools around there it was a small town with a lot of farms. And this is about Center School. Many of you don't know Center School, but it's up on a hill and it's decaying now. And I hate to see it decaying because I have so many fond memories of that school. Over the humps, the rhythmic beat of drums, a young Indian boy in long-legged boots, extra long deerskin shirt, shaved head were mere imagery for us, the children attending Center School in North Branford in the early 40s. We ran at recess, making redskin sounds in whip-like lines over mounds that were once burial grounds. We found arrowheads in the hills we children named humps. Indians claimed this land hunting grounds centuries ago before. Our town was called Totoket, place of the tidal river. Sachem Monowese inherited this from his mother, a Quinnipiac Indian. His father, the mighty Sohage, had land that stretched from New Haven to Middletown and beyond. Then, English adventurers tricked the small band of Indians into parting with their land for a coat of English cloth and 11 bolts of wool. Hundreds of years later, small children studied, romped, and recreated a time typical of long ago. And I'm going to grab my water. I have a very dry throat. Excuse me. This one will explain itself. It's called Chuck. Chuck was my father, and Friday was payday. Cashed his check at the bar. Booze altered his mind. He swaggered home drunk. I knew I would pay. I was thankful. Altered his mood. He swaggered home drunk. I knew I would pay. I was thankful if I only got off with a bruise. Mother swore ugly words, angry thoughts in her eyes. We kids were silent. There was nothing to say. This sort of violence was not a surprise. All we could do was be quiet and pray. Often he would dump the table of dinner. Dinner and dishes crashed to the floor. Chuck was not an everyday sinner. That mixture of Fridays and beer made him sore. Scrambling from the kitchen where nobody ate, it was simply another Friday night date. And this was a sonnet. I should have told you that first. This is another one. Innocent. The odor of stale beer wakens me. Labor-worn hands cover my naked youth. Wet lips cover my mouth. Stop! And a shove makes him leave. Quickly, quietly. No apology, no mention of tonight. I tell myself he thought I was my mother. A simple error in a drunken stupor. I never again looked at him the same. And hoped he was too drunk to recall his mistake. Eye contact was shameful for me. I blamed myself and him, feeling naked, exposed whenever I caught him looking at me. Some 50 years later, I visit him alone in the nursing home. He needed to talk to me. Said he was sure I recalled the incident. He admitted he was out of line. I felt the pain for both of us. This one's a little repetition. That mirror hanging on the wall. That mirror hanging on the wall has seen it all, has seen it all. The sufferable truth, romance can fade. The mirror fogged, it was afraid. The mirror wept, it showed a sign of being a best friend of mine. It watched me as the seasons turn, leaves of green to autumn's burn. That mirror hanging on the wall has seen it all, has seen it all. It shivered at the almost rape, was thankful for my quick escape. When I dared a sometimes bow, it saw men come, it saw them go. Each time my dear family visits me, the mirror sees that my heart beats free. That mirror hanging on the wall has seen it all, has seen it all. Sometimes I see my face reflect and wonder how it can detect for why I laugh or why I cry. It sees no need to question why. Winter's cold now left behind. I give one glance. This spring I shine. That mirror hanging on the wall has seen it all, has seen it all. 2 words. I was 12, leaving for school one morning. You said, "You look," and stopped. I said, "Look what, Mom?" You said, "Oh, never mind." I have spent many years since you died at the age of 48, wondering what you almost said. Did you want to say, "You look pretty"? Or perhaps, "I am wrong"? What if you had a secret? What if you tried to tell me but your pain was too great. I have done endless research. Why was I never told my godmother's name? Did you want to tell me I was not your child, but looked like my mother? I am haunted by those two words, never explained. I would rather believe you really wanted to say, I love you. And I'll stop there and grab myself.
Thank you. Yeah. Now, I have a few different little ones I wanted to share with you people. So let's see. Here I am. Number one. Lost. At 3:13 a.m., a perfectly phrased small poem was here, now gone. Gone from my head, all its profound meaning, all its matchless insights, not a word misstated, not a phrase misplaced. Where did they go? Not under my pillow, not under my bed. Gone, gone from my head, skittering through the falling leaves. Gone, writing the nightmare. And this is the same kind of a thing. It's my muse. I locked my muse inside a tiny closet. Yet occasionally, without warning, small wisps appear from the top of the door frame. Puffs like cigarette smoke waft from the keyhole. Unsettling, scratching sounds shiver the door spine. Sometimes a minuscule, sparkling diamond rolls out from beneath the door, demanding my attention. Yeah. This is for you. Lunar Mountains. I have climbed moon mountains. They are frightfully steep. Air rib-achingly thin. Howling alien winds assault me. Higher still I climb. I have dreamt of goats scrambling over rocky promontories, eagles screeching, warning me away. Yet climb I do, until dawn conquers frigid moon. There is no life on the moon, he said. I know. Now, oh, that's because it's over here. I was in New York City going to the opera shortly after 9/11. And when I came home, I wrote this poem. Romeo and Juliet, 2001. Ornate old opera house, exotic with scent of golden women, shimmering skirts, ringed fingers ablaze. Voices die as sweet Bellini music, towering, sings of lovers. Step to tower top, Juliet trails velvet skirts, as love messages float upon Bellini's magic air. The Duke's tall painted tower is gleaming, moon-dyed with beams of molten lava. Sharp, Romeo's golden sword. Brilliant, Juliet's golden chains. White, her silken lace virginal skirts. Listen, as lovers whisper melodies. Just this once, must they die? Juliet slowly lifts her arms. Romeo softly strokes her hair. Death's grand opera stuns the darkened air. Bellini's lovers now lie in airless tomb. No sign of towers gleaming above proud city. No heaven-high spires of guilt. All love songs stilled by September flames. And September Ritual. Making chili sauce 2012. Today it is different. Cinnamon and cloves changing to remembrance spices. Chili steam to white smoke. Our chili sauce simmers in Grammy's huge iron pot. Sweetly hot, red as flames. Red as the sauce we made last September, but a recipe now forever altered. Thank you.
This group of poems begins with a later relationship with my husband-to-be. Early on in Yellow Springs. Strange man to sometimes feel so free, to lift me high, to light the lights. You seem to feel like flaunting me for one brief time. Now you stay away too long. Is it discretion, as you say? Some days you feel so black, huddled below, cringe in dinettes, cynically, bitterly, talk and laugh. Your courage is a sometime thing, and so are we. This is called Glen Helen, and that's a place near Antioch College in Yellow Springs where Moses and I first met. Glen Helen. They saw seduction in their dance, in retrospect. Shy, self-contained, so quietly unknown, fantasy flourished. They touched to learn each other, silent in the dark. Takes time, more times. Mild ecstasy, and not so mild. After, so damp, so dear, shared compliments polite, self-conscious laughter. Gone, her tears for spells untried. Gone, his fears, his pipes were tired. A passing fair exchange, forbidden nymph, curl-haloed satyr. Moses in March. A dark, dense cloud of discontent hovers throughout 5 railroad rooms. At center sits my furrowed, slumping lover, sunk softly into a large chair, a comfort at another time, feet propped up, blanketed. He smokes an endless chain. The growing pile of refuse overflows. Straight Scotch dwindles on the radiator, drowning him in ever-deepening dourness. In half-light, he looks out from lowered lids and tells me I'm withdrawn. Fifth floor walk-up on the Lower East Side. The heat is here. Get up hot before the day. Relaxed and cool only a moment after bath. Walk slow around. Heat follows close, gathers in streets where people bloom. Heat is here in bongo rhythms, echoing endless, bounding light. Heat is here, and when we fuck, our sweat will fuse as we slip and slither, laughing in the joy of being hot. And 30 years later. Sounds from my husband. When that seizure took your order, not your words, and much of your interest in others' speech, you spoke on and on, once for 3 hours, with not a jot of sense to those who listened. You often seemed to be discussing paintings, so your friend Jay brought paint and brushes, but never would you pick them up to try, although I painted nearby to inspire. I stayed to watch a story when you'd left the room, heard you coughing, gurgling bubbles, saw you'd swallowed green palmolive. EMTs assured soap wouldn't hurt you. On occasion you made sense, as when we wouldn't let you taste Thanksgiving candles. You smiled slyly and said, if you all weren't around, I'd have those in a minute. Once stated anxiously, I can't go on tonight. Shall I call an understudy? Yes, call Jimmy. At your LA memorial, James Earl Jones was sadly pleased to hear he'd been first choice. Sometimes from the TV set, I hear your voice as a boxer, a gangster, a preacher. The sound of shock, a bittersweet feeling to share your being still around, in a way. I think it was my 50th reunion that I went to with my high school class, and it inspired this poem. Balls. At the dance, we'd bounce around the floor or jostle or roll or land clumsily, sometimes grazing or glancing off another. Many years ago, when we first knew each other, like silly putty balls, we flowed to fit whatever space we happened to inhabit. Now, formed by years of experience, some dancers spring as crazily as ping-pongs from partner to partner, job to job. Others, reactive as a super ball, ricochet, leap away from the arena. Some, having been kicked around by life, seriously maimed or suffering endless pricks, can still bounce back like thick-skinned soccer balls. Croquet balls clack in noisy repartee. Beach balls like being tossed in playful games, while bowling balls make clunky thuds, grumbling about work and or divorces. Most winning are the tennis balls, resilient, elastic, rebounding, round the floor at our reunion, sharing with equal grace both slams and aces. In years to come, we'll come back as balloons, floating above the fray in sweet oblivion. This is another relationship that you all may recognize. But I love zinnias. Your gardens are too precious for a zinnia, you once said. Believed you were a common threat, a common flower. But I love zinnias, I declared. Their vibrancy's unmatched except by you. You seek out subtlety, raise hybrids I can't name, not zinnias loud like me. Though I may love them in my cutting garden, I suppose I'm not one. Need watering and grooming, tender care. Exotic plants are like that, taking too much time. I love the garishly carefree. I guess I'm too high maintenance for your garden, demanding of attention you can't give, a hothouse flower. But in this last poem, things got better. Harvest dinner. It's lovely outside, you say, asking me to join you for a stroll, although I'm just about to put our dinner on. But if you don't mind the vegetables as we grew are served lukewarm, I say I'll gladly join you in the night, dark with moonlessness and precise stars. We walk arm in arm, bare toes chilled by grassy dew. Note the star in the Big Dipper's handle that is not one, but a circling pair. The hammock, not cold and damp as feared, welcomes our spooning bodies. Fireflies flicker through branches, and tree frogs chorus madly. You pull my head back in your caveman way, offer a kiss intensely gentle. Your agreeing to come out with me so turns me on, you sweetly mutter. Later, corn and beans still melt the butter. The next reader will be Audrey.
Okay. This poem I wrote a long time ago, actually, and it's called Your Evening in Paris. I recall the feel of satin lining your final resting place. Today, I run my fingers over another satin-lined box, one you loved. Bottles, each carefully placed. So final, labels dim on your favorites. I turn the small silver bar. Evening in Paris plays after 50 years. If briefly I had been blue cobalt instead of human flesh, would you have loved me, or even more, just hold me, just once? Lady slippers. Everybody know what a lady slipper plant is? This is one sweet memory I have of my mother. We lived near the woods on a country road, and Mother, always dressed in her house dress, apron, and sweater, lure us into the lush green, damp, dense, musty forest. Every spring to search near the dark green moss covering the ground where we all sought to be the first to find this delicate pink wildflower called lady slippers, with petals like whispers, leaving a sweet memory like soft white and pink clouds in an early morning spring day. This one's, you may chuckle because it is kind of funny. It's called Making Up. When I was merely 13, Mama gave in to my latest whim, tangy lipstick from Kresge's. I loved its slick feel and its color so light, but my lips looked a fright. They seemed to stick out, so I knew in a heartbeat it didn't look right. Then some of my friends did things to their eyes, but Mama said no, which was not a surprise. When I grew a bit older, I saw for myself that I could be bolder with things on my shelf. By the time I was ready to really wear makeup, I realized with glasses off, a really huge shakeup occurred. I could no longer see without glasses to guide shades of purple, green, and blue I applied to my eyes. When I put glasses back on, I scared myself too. For when I checked it out, it was far too much hue. So today I wear none. If not for glasses, I'm nearly blind. But I am still having fun, and my friends do not mind. This is about my grandfather, that lived with my grandmother next door to us. Andy, 1884 to 1975. Grandpa was from County Armagh in Northern Ireland. Everyone knew him as Andy. His blarney brogue rolled out in delightful baritone curls. Deep wrinkles spoke volumes, carved deep into his weathered face. For as far back as I recall, he wore his thick mane of hair beneath the wool beret, topping him to a T. When I was young, he worked for the Connecticut DOT. During the winter, he drove a snowplow. While most of us slept, he prepared snow-covered state roads for safe morning travel. When he retired, he loved to sit on a bench he had cleverly made between two trees so he could watch the traffic on Route 80, one of the roads he had meticulously maintained. The summer months while school was out were special to me, recalling those hot, sticky nights while we caught lightning bugs in a jar, and Grandpa rolled his cigarettes cleverly between two fingers and licked them closed. His hands of leather were still strong enough to chop wood, even in his late 70s, and I still hear his warnings. Don't eat the green apples from my trees. You'll get a bellyache. He never let on that he saw us in his vegetable garden eating red tomatoes kissed by the sun, planted tenderly by him in soil not nearly as rich and productive as in his hometown far away. He married my dad's mom, a young widow with 5 small children. After a lumber mill accident, took her husband at 32, then fathering with her 4 more. He always had time to teach us how to tie knots or whittle a piece of wood into anything we asked, or just watched us play childhood games and smile into those deep wrinkles. We adored summer nights before TV and too many things modern. He died in 1975, and though we were all adults by then, his world of knowledge and Irish charm were enough to last a lifetime in our hearts. I think of him often and miss him. Andy White, pure, kind, loving, and devilishly sweet. That was my grandpa. One more. Grandma White. My grandma's hands were gnarled and wrinkled from age and washing clothes for 9 children and a husband on a wood and metal washboard, then wringing them tight and hanging them to dry. My grandma was very special and always did so much for others that she neglected herself. She was always there for me, finding me white gloves for church on Sundays, making terrariums for school, or creating the perfect Halloween costume out of the wonderful clothes from her attic of wonder. My grandma let me watch her make preserves, canned tomatoes, and stitch threads of love on her treadle sewing machine. She could cook a large dinner set for a king. She was first to have television, and we watched Queen for a day, and we would all cry tears of happiness for the winner of the day's show. She changed a lot of diapers in her life before needing one for herself, as my aunt cared for her until Grandma eventually passed away from old age and Alzheimer's. She was to me one of the most influential people in my life and will always be in my heart. And now I would like to invite my 2 cohorts up, and I have a question for them. Come on up. Did you ever have a problem where your well has run dry, or you just feel like nothing in your brain can write a poem? Did you?
Oh, yeah.
And did you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm going to read mine first since I was reading. This is a very jagged poem. It's called Stuck. Pick up pen, pen to paper. Start jotting words, spewing, spilling, sprawling, scrawling, babbling, obliterate, erase, rethink, flowing, nouns, verbs, adjectives, ideas from deep inside your brain. You wrap it up now, make copies, bring to Tuesday workshop. Slice, dice, tried, convicted, becoming a masterpiece to love. All right. All right. Who's going to go next?
We all end up writing about writing eventually, and this is called Writing Wish. I want a verse to soar off the end, to turn back unexpectedly or twist away, dancing like a dervish, wailing like a banshee, sans restrictions on its stops and starts. Some days it might seem to want to close. On others it might clamor to enjam, depending on the mood of the reader, the writer, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker.
Now, when we started, I said that this was a group that started out way, way back with Katrina Van Tassel. And I have a poem to finish tonight that was written by one of our very best poets, Mary Lou Walsh. And next month, she's going to be the featured poet, and we will all be reading her poetry. So this is how we are finishing. Writing on Thursdays. The sweater will be one size fits all. Jane brings big balls of yarn, bloody magenta, cobalts, greens as fake as a Granny Smith. She stitches the collar, young flared wings to fly on, each row straight as her teeth. She watches Margaret pull soft whips of Angora from her bag. Motes of frail wool float in the air. Like blessings, they touch our shoulders. One sleeve is finished. Outstretched, it envelops us, tender as cream. Gordy displays his offering, an intricate filigree full of yarn overs, knit behinds, popcorn shot with gold. From his pocket, like a secret, he takes worn wooden buttons, pivoting, fastening, enclosing. And now Mary Lou says, I make the lining. My yarn is always the same. I touch the turquoise and canary with the ends of my fingers, hold their filaments against my cheek, return in relief to the everlasting black. My yarn is cheap. I should spend more. Strange, this garment that we weave. Complete, our wool is gone. Used up, we are bare, but we are warmer than before. Thank you.